Welcome, everyone. I'm Kimberly Boschman, and this is the Intentionally Intuitive podcast. In this episode, we're going to take a deep dive into what it means to have a life path number, master number 22-4. So if you have a life path number that is 22-4, this is for you. We're going to dissect this vibration and sort of take a closer look at what it means to sort of have this as your goal of stepping into in this lifetime and what that could mean for you. If you haven't already, I do recommend having a listen to the episode in my playlist if you're listening on YouTube, or if you're listening on my podcast, do a quick search and you'll be able to find it. But the video titled What It Means to Have a Master Number in Your Life Path, that's going to be really important to understand in order to sort of combine it with the information that I'm providing today. Because I go into a lot in that episode that really talks about the core meaning of what it means to even have a master number in your life path number. So definitely have listened to that either before or after listening to this, and this podcast should make even more sense. Okay, before we get into it, I do want to just mention that, as always, the best way to get the most clarity about your own numerology report and the numbers that your soul signed up for in this lifetime is, of course, to have a personal reading. So whether that's with me or another numerologist that you feel comfortable with, I highly recommend it to, again, get the greatest sort of perspective of the landscape that you're working with, because we work with so many more vibrations than just solely our life path number. And so having a deeper understanding of what all those numbers are and how they sort of interplay can really help you with understanding how your soul is meant to move towards stepping into this higher vibration of the 22 in this lifetime. So definitely recommend that. If you are interested in working with me, you can find my information in the description box below. I would love to work with you and take a look. Okay, so I think I want to start this off by just sort of reminding you that the key is to remember that with all master life path numbers, is that your life path is your core base number. So for you all, and myself included, I'm also a 22-4, but for you all, or for us, our core number, our true life path number is the 4, right? And we will step into the vibration of the 4 in this lifetime, and we will master it, and we will do great things with it, more than likely, especially with a master number 22 tied to it. That energy of the 4, again, is your life path number. However, you'll also have many opportunities to step into that 22 vibration. But stepping into that 22 vibration is negotiable, right? And stepping into that 22 vibration will ultimately be decided by your own personal choices. Stepping into and mastering the energy of the 22 will come with incredible challenges and require a tremendous amount of effort. And usually the opportunities to step into this master number 22 can also feel too big for us, right? And we'll likely struggle with self-doubt, imposter syndrome, lack of confidence, and feelings of lack of worthiness. But we will always sort of feel the pull of the call to find a way to make it happen anyway, against all odds. We can always say no to whatever presents to us that is of that vibration of the 22, because we always have free will. And though we will likely always feel the pull, and that pull feels like there's something bigger we're meant to step into, there's something more we're meant for type of thing. It's like this feeling of trying to find or needing to find your purpose in a sense, and that purpose feels larger than life. And that feeling sort of never goes away. Even if you were to step into the vibration of the 22 and satisfy that energy, you will still always feel that energy because it's so big. The vibration of the 22 is so big. So even if you choose not to say yes to the opportunities that present for you to step into the 22, you will always sort of feel that pull, right? And that really doesn't go away. Even when you step into the 22, it really doesn't go away. So all you can kind of do is continue to say yes to the opportunities that present, explore them, and find a way to overcome the obstacles that will absolutely be there in order to satisfy this vibration. So with that said, though we will likely always feel that pull, we can absolutely take the sort of quote unquote easier route and choose to stay within the vibration of the 4. And choosing to do this is perfectly fine, right? We aren't being sort of judged by the universe or our soul if we choose to drop out of the master program that our soul signed up for. However, that pull towards the 22 likely won't subside, and the opportunities to continue to try again will likely keep coming in, right? And one thing to keep in mind is typically we see people step into their master energy later in life, like in their 40s, their 50s, and beyond. Everything prior to that is sort of preparation to be ready to say yes to those big opportunities that will present once we're aligned with this vibration. And, those opportunities are very often, very far-reaching. And what I mean by that is the work of the 22 is meant to be seen, heard, and experienced by a large population, quite likely or quite possibly globally. So again, this is big, big energy. And that's why when, we might think we're ready for the 22 and, we've convinced ourselves that we are, but then usually when the opportunity presents, we realize very quickly that, first of all, we never would have been ready for it earlier on. We needed the preparation. And even with all of the preparation of almost a lifetime, we still won't be ready for it. And that illustrates sort of the biggest struggle of stepping into the 22 or a master number, is that when it finally presents for us to say yes to it, we don't feel ready for it. And we usually have a tremendous amount of self-doubt. We usually, it's easier to give up and say, nope, this isn't for me, or, this is just too much. I'm not going to do it, type of thing. But what's interesting is usually when this larger than life opportunity or opportunities present themselves, there's that fear, there's that self-doubt, there's that all the things come in, right? All the things come rushing in. But there's also that very strong soul alignment. Like you can feel it. You know that your soul is destined to do this, whatever this may be for you. So it becomes this constant back and forth between, I guess, the ego and the soul, where the soul is like, no, we're doing this. We signed up for this. Let's go. It's here. It's our time to shine. Let's make it happen. And the ego is like, this doesn't feel, I don't know all the moving parts. I can't control this situation, and the fear steps in. And it can deter us or trip us up from saying yes to whatever this is. But I say all of this because, again, you can look at your life leading up to, say, later in life, right? 40s, 50s, and beyond, or when this larger vibration comes in for you, this larger opportunity comes in for you to sort of be on a bigger stage and share your expertise and share your wisdom and your knowledge and all of the things in a way that is going to be sort of building a bigger legacy or something sustainable or some kind of greater solution or resource for a larger population. You can be ready for it somewhat. You can be more prepared for it, right? If we can look at the early years of the challenges and the struggles as preparation, then it helps us to understand why it can sometimes take so long for the 22-4 to truly feel like it's in purpose, right? To feel like you've stepped into something that feels very aligned with your soul. And that can take a tremendous amount of time, which again can be frustrating, and we're going to talk about it. Now, when it comes to the vibration of the 22, we are meant to master this energy, step into the higher octave of it, and then do something significant with it that tends to have the power to impact that greater population that we were talking about earlier. So again, though we may want to rush the process, nothing about this energy can be rushed. We need to, take as much time as we're given to, again, prepare for whatever we're being asked to step into. And it might not feel like preparation, but I can almost guarantee that when this presents to you, and I say this, it could be a myriad of things, and it could be multiple things that's tied to this 22 vibration. But when it presents to you, you're going to be grateful for the years of preparation. And I'm speaking from experience. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on, my own personal experience with all of this stuff that I'm talking about right now. But you'll be grateful for the years of preparation. So if you're just kind of starting out on your journey and, it feels like endless trials and tribulations, etc., just know it is absolutely preparation for something great that you are meant to step into. And you also have that free will, so you can always say no to it. But it's interesting too, and I just want to kind of say this, this reading is a little bit more personal. This Master Number 22-4 reading is a little bit more personal for me because I am also moving through this with you all. And so, there's a lot that I've learned just in numerology about my own personal journey with this. But it's one of those energies where we want to rush it, but when the thing comes in for us, or the things associated with this 22, we're grateful that we had the preparation. And also, I say, based on book numerology, we have that choice whether or not we step into the 22 or not. But from personal experience, I've tried to say no to certain things that have come in for me associated with the 22, and nothing has felt more off by saying no to it, right? And nothing has felt more, it's just like it keeps coming in, right? So again, I say this lightly, that we have free will, and we do have free will, but I say it lightly in the sense that we can easily say no to this 22 vibration, because I really do feel like it's such a deep calling of the soul that the soul is not going to give in that easily, right? It's going to keep presenting, and we're going to feel almost like if we don't do whatever this is, we're really missing out on our greater life purpose in this lifetime. So there's a lot of energy behind this. And so, so throughout this reading, I'm going to be interjecting some things that my own personal experience, again, because I'm right there with you all on this journey. We'll just do it together. So the other thing I would say is, though it takes, it can take many years of that preparation and wisdom gathering in order to be able to truly step into this vibration, the purpose of that is so that we do more good than harm, right? Because if this whatever it is that we're meant to step into associated with the 22 were to come in too early, we would not be prepared for it. And we would just likely make such a mess of it that we would just spend too much time having to clean it up. And so again, I come back to reiterate, those many years of preparation are very much needed. Now, there is a caveat to this, and I will say there might be some 22-4s out there who stepped into this vibration very early in life. And I haven't actually come across anyone in all of my readings of numerology, but, I'm not, it's obviously there's going to be people who can step into it early, but there's a purpose to that as well. And there's a method to that as well. She's not a 22-4 and she's not a master number, but Taylor Swift is actually a 16-7, and the karmic life paths are very similar in a lot of ways to the master numbers. And it's interesting because same thing with master numbers, karmic numbers usually don't step into their karmic vibration or sort of meet that vibration until much later in life. And the reason why I bring up Taylor is because she's a 16-7, which is karmic, and she actually stepped into that very, very early in life. And she's one of the only examples I know of that sort of has one of these very, really intense vibrations in their life path that has stepped into it quite early. I'm sure there's many, many more examples, but it's very rare. And if that's the case, if that does happen for someone out there who is already in their, say their early 20s and they've stepped into their 22 vibration, there is also obviously a method to that. And we would have to look at your full numerology report to understand why that would be. But for the majority of us, it comes later in life. And everything leading up to that is preparation. So again, we can do more good than harm once we say yes to it, once we step into it. Now, many numerologists would say that the 22 is the most difficult master number to step into. I've actually seen that in writing. I've seen it through some of the software notations that talk about the 22 for vibration being the most difficult master number to step into. I tend to disagree because first and foremost, I believe each master number comes, with just is riddled with seemingly insurmountable challenges to overcome in order to reach the summit of that vibration. But though I wouldn't agree that it's the most challenging, I absolutely believe it to be the most frustrating. More on that and why I say that soon. But first, let's break down both the 4 and the 22 so that you can fully understand what your soul signed up for in this lifetime. Let's start out by explaining what the actual life path number is. Now, if you look at your report, your full numerology report, there are a tremendous amount of numbers that you're working with in this lifetime. And the most significant number that sits at the very top of your report is your life path number. So in their own way, all of the other numbers assist us in stepping into and mastering and doing something beautiful with the life path. We have our life path from birth to death, and typically it's new for the soul. There can be, of course, exceptions to that rule based on your birthday number, but typically it's new for the soul. And so we don't always resonate with that vibration right away as we're learning the ins and the outs of it. The life path holds all of our challenges, our triumphs, our experiences, and so much more as we move through life learning everything this vibration can teach us. So remember, for us or for anyone, that life path number is the core number. So for you, it's 4. And it will always be 4. You can think of that 4 vibration as sort of a bachelor's degree that your soul signed up for, and the 22 as the master's degree that you may or may not choose to pursue. That 4 isn't going anywhere, though it's really important that you sort of understand what this vibration holds for you. So let's break that 4 down. And again, I say it's very, very important that you understand the 4 vibration so that you can understand the 22 vibration. So I say that because I want you to bear with me as I break down the 4 vibration. Because again, the 22 is it's basically a double dose of the 4. So it's really important that you understand what the 4 vibration brings to the table. So don't be putting a timestamp in the comments, skipping this part, or my 22-4 ass will absolutely delete it. I'm watching you. That 22 is a magnification of the 4. So we absolutely have to understand the 4 to understand the 22. Okay, so in a nutshell, 4s are the workhorses of numerology. Though it's possible for a 4 to sometimes fall to extremes in their journey of being either a workaholic or extremely lazy, I really have yet to run across a 4 that isn't super dedicated at doing a great job with whatever they set their mind to and commit to. Every 4 I've ever met is incredibly hardworking and only quote unquote lazy When they feel completely overwhelmed and frustrated by other life or from all that they've sort of taken on. 4s are typically hardworking by default because they usually have to work for everything they receive in life. 4s learn early on that this is a lifetime of effort, and usually much more effort than their peers is going to be required in order to see the same degree of success. Very little comes easy to the 4, but this is by design, and we'll talk about this in a moment. I used to work in human resources, and sometimes I joke that if I would have known about numerology back then and I saw that someone was a 4, I would know that they would do a great job, and no matter what they've been faced with or would be faced with, they would get the job done. So, what a great hiring tool that would have been to have. I'm half kidding, but it was, 4s are notorious for being incredibly loyal, committed, and dedicated. And most 4s at some point or many points often strive for perfectionism, which can be great if you're on the receiving end of that persistence and that perfectionism. But to the 4, it can be incredibly draining, and it can lead to that overwhelm and burnout that we mentioned earlier. So let's briefly cover some of the main higher and lower octaves of the 4 before we move into sort of breaking down the 22. So again, I reiterate, you all are 22 4s. So you have like this double dose, this stronger emphasis of this 4 energy, just naturally. So everything I'm going to talk about right now, you almost have sort of these elevated levels of this vibration that you're going to be working with. So you probably will take it to the nth degree at certain points throughout your journey. So the 4 is by design foundational. This is about building something truly honest, full of integrity, and that's sustainable. There's a tremendous amount of wisdom, honesty, and integrity associated with this vibration. A lot of times when you meet a 4, they can be individuals who are very direct in their approach, very direct with their honesty. And you often know where you stand with them. There's a very practical, sort of pragmatic energy to the 4, where there's not a ton of like sort of games or just where the person stands. There's a tremendous amount of honesty there. And again, I'm really kind of talking about when someone is in and mastered this vibration. There can certainly be trials and tribulations to get to that point. But typically, these are individuals who are very honest, very direct. And sometimes that directness and that honesty can be taken the wrong way. And you likely will see some kind of opposition to that honesty and that directness. But it's such a natural characteristic for the 4 to be that, direct and honest. And that helps them to build what they're meant to build with integrity and honesty, and to build something sustainable and to share their wisdom in the way that they're meant to do so. The 4 brings in or tries to bring in a sense of stability and security. And usually these are individuals who really feel comfortable with systems, with organization, with, again, some kind of methodology to implement whatever they're trying to implement. It can be really frustrating for a 4 to be in a situation that's chaotic, or where there isn't some kind of system in place, or where things don't flow, right? So, and if the 4 finds themselves in those situations, they're typically the one who will find the solution, right, to create some kind of better system that works, right? And they're typically someone who can bring organization to chaos, that can help to bring a solution and resources to whoever's involved in the situation. Typically, these are people who are quite intelligent and have great memory. I've never met a 4 who has a hard time remembering like certain details, or even like things that happened, way back when they were a kid or just the most random stuff, they usually are thought to have the memory of elephants, right? Like they can remember just someone's face, a detail, something someone said from 20 years ago. Sometimes that can be a good thing. Sometimes that can be a hindrance because that can sometimes cause the 4 to sort of overthink and replay a situation that happened 20 years ago that's no longer happening, but they can become hyper-focused on it. And because it's hard for them to release it sometimes because it's so ingrained in their memory. And when I say intelligent, I usually mean these are usually people, again, who like systems or organization, and they're really good at either with numbers or with, coming up with some kind of a structure or format that can not only serve them, but can serve others as well. And usually when they commit to something, they really commit to it. So if they are going to be a doctor, they're going to know the ins and the outs of being a doctor, right? So typically speaking, now remember, this is sort of a general overview of the 4 vibration. There's a lot that kind of ins and outs of this vibration that I certainly can't cover here because I'd be talking for 6 hours. But high level, these are usually people where if they put their mind to becoming the expert at something and they follow through with it, they will be the expert at whatever that is. Like they will make sure they know the ins and the outs. And that's where their intelligence really shines through. This is definitely, the 4 is absolutely all about patience, being patient. This is 100% a lifetime for us of learning to have patience, learning about patience, and for our patience being tested. 100%. And that's from life to death. That is going to be the theme where, even when we've mastered patience, those tests will keep coming in to make sure that we continue to adhere to that virtue. This is a lifetime of slow and steady. The rewards are in direct proportion to the effort put forth. And there will be a tremendous amount of effort required, right? But if we can continue, have patience, move slow and steady, move step by step and be methodical in our steps, and build something, foundational that's strong and sturdy and stable, then we will see the rewards of all of that effort. And the rewards will absolutely be in direct proportion to that effort put forth. But it's getting to that sort of destination that can really be testing our patience, right? Because when I talk about it can take, slow and steady, sometimes that's for years. Sometimes that can take years. And that's why the 4 is one of the most resilient vibrations in numerology, because everything the 4 sets out to achieve is like summiting a mountain or multiple mountains. And the 4 has to stay committed and be patient and understand that in this lifetime, there is no such thing as instant gratification. We have to work for what we want. We have to work for achieving that greater vision, no matter what. Again, I don't think I've ever met a 4 or someone who has really strong 4 placements that things have just been sort of handed over and been super easy. Now, there's going to be certain areas of your life where support comes in very easily, or certain things will come in for you. But the things that you are meant to build, the places where you are meant to be that sort of expert, or where you're meant to really step into, some kind of greater goal or be more sort of in purpose, those are the things that you're going to want the most, and they're going to take forever. Not forever, but they're going to take a lot of effort, okay? And what can be frustrating about that for the 4 is it will seem like their peers can be like, you know what, I want to do X, Y, or Z. And it almost, if by magic, happens for them. And then we're over here really putting in that effort, really taking our time, and so that can be a little bit frustrating for the 4. And it becomes very apparent very early on that we are required to be dedicated, to persevere, to be committed, and to take our time and have patience to build that strong foundation that's going to be or is meant to be some kind of a legacy or sustainable. And that's part of the reason why I say this is one of the most frustrating life paths. Not just the 22, but the 4 in general is incredibly frustrating because we want to see those instant gratifications. We want to put in the effort and see the reward. And again, this is a lifetime where it's going to require that sort of lengthy effort to see the reward, but it will be worth it. We just got to sort of keep going. The other thing I would say about this is the 4 is known that this is going to be a testing lifetime, and that those tests are not punitive. They are to pace us, to keep us paced, right? So that we continue to pay attention to the details, to be methodical, to put one step in front of the other, and to keep us on track. If we were kind of putting in a little bit of effort and seeing that instant gratification, there wouldn't be that same sense of fulfillment, but we wouldn't be building something sturdy, strong, and sustainable, right? Because very little in life that comes instantaneously is sustainable, right? It comes in and it goes out, and it's pretty quick with that. So this is a lifetime where, there's going to be a tremendous amount of hurdles and challenges and those roadblocks, but it really is to keep us at that slow and steady pace so that we don't start, just blowing through things and, running to the finish line. Because if we do that as a 4, we're just going to have to circle back around and clean it up and do it again type of thing. So the tests, though they can be incredibly frustrating, are really there to keep us at a healthy, aligned pace to be able to create or do whatever it is our soul wants to do in this lifetime. Again, there is no rushing with this life path. And again, when I'm talking about the 4, I'm also talking about the 22 here, because remember, the 22 is a double dose of the 4. So it's all very, very relevant. Now, one thing I do want to point out is that the 4 is a very heart-led energy. It's the 4th chakra, right? So we must pursue what aligns with our heart, what we really feel aligned with, what we feel called to do. And the reason why I say this is because the 4 can be loyal to a fault once it commits to something. And so part of our sort of journey and part of the tests that we'll be facing are to help us to recognize when to shift gears. So if our heart's in it, then it's a yes. We're meant to go for it. We're meant to make it happen. We're meant to stay committed to it and persevere through those tests and challenges. But if our heart's no longer in it, then it's a no, and we have to shift gears. And honestly, I would say that's probably one of the hardest things for a 4 to do, is to know when to shift gears and then actually do that, right? Because it's such a loyal vibration that usually once a 4 commits to something, it's in it for the long haul. I mean, come hell or high water, it is going to make this happen, whatever this may be. And that's beautiful, and that can serve a beautiful purpose. But where it becomes sort of detrimental or destructive is when the 4 is committed to something that is not serving them anymore, right? Or not serving what they feel called or aligned to. Then they end up building somebody else's dream and committing to somebody else's dream, and they lose sight of their own. And that happens so much with 4 energy. And, you can kind of look back over your lifetime and see if that fits, right? Were there relationships that you stayed in way past their expiration date? Were there projects that you committed to way past the expiration date, where your heart checked out, 2 years prior to you actually realizing, hey, this isn't for me anymore. This doesn't feel good. It's not aligned. And then making the jump. That's definitely one of the biggest struggles for the 4 and the 22 is recognizing when to call it quits, when to let go and when to release, right? So that can be really, really difficult, and knowing when to shift those gears. The other thing I would say is, again, kind of aligned with this, we have to find that sort of sweet spot of knowing when to stay committed to something and see it through to completion for the rewards. And we must recognize when to release it and move in a different direction, regardless of the time and energy put forth with whatever this is. And the reason why I say this, and the reason why this is such like the sort of pinnacle conundrum of the 4, is because it's such a dedicated energy that when it commits to something, part of the journey of the 4 is to recognize, okay, it's going to be a struggle. It's going to require effort. There's going to be challenges, but I need to persevere. I need to keep going, right? That's such a keynote of the 4 energy, is that perseverance and committing to something and being loyal to it. And that's beautiful when your heart's in it. But when your heart's no longer in it, then that commitment, that loyalty is actually sort of denigrating whatever it is that you're trying to build. Like you're is having the opposite effect. And so that's where you have to recognize when to release something. So that becomes one of the main keynotes for the 4 is figuring that out. Because sometimes we can see challenges as obstacles that are meant, or that are trying to reroute us, but really they might be there to help us to gain some wisdom that we can use as we move forward once we overcome those obstacles. And sometimes those challenges are there to redirect us. And so it's in recognizing when to keep going and when to release. And the only way we will know which to do as a 4 is by following our heart, by following our intuition, by following that inner guidance. That is the only way we're going to know whether or not we are meant to keep going or call it quits. And so we have to be in touch with our inner self, our heart center, our intuition, and follow that guidance. And what's interesting is, like, 4s will make great ride or dies. But unfortunately, we sort of end up sacrificing ourselves in the process because we never know when to get off the ride. Or we simply wouldn't allow ourselves to, because we gave our word and we committed. So again, we have to learn how to tell the difference between when to stay committed and persevere to reap those rewards that are on the other side of all those challenges, and when to say no and shift directions before we accidentally drive ourselves off a cliff, to our own detriment, because we refuse to let go because we committed to something. Oftentimes for 4s, to give up on something is a dirty word, right? Like it's something to be ashamed of. And it absolutely is not something to be ashamed of. But we definitely have to recognize the difference, right? When something is for us and when something is not for us. And again, the only way we'll recognize that is when we check in with ourselves to see if our heart is still in it or not. 4s are, again, notoriously persistent and incredibly resilient. This can be a powerful tool that helps us to achieve great success after much dedication, of course, and effort. But it can also equate to great stubbornness. And that stubbornness can deteriorate relationships. It can make us difficult to be around and or to work with us. It can also cause us to miss out on ways in which we can work much, much more smarter, not harder. So we really have to be aware of where is our persistence or our, having that strong focus on the goal. Where is that turning into stubbornness, where we're not listening to other people, where we're not collaborating? And collaboration is a big, big part of the 22, which I'm going to talk about in just a moment. So this stubbornness can absolutely get in the way of that, can get in the way of us stepping into that 22 successfully. So it is definitely something that, again, we have to find the happy medium of being persistent and resilient and sort of being solution focused and focusing on that solution and moving towards the goal, but not being so stubborn or rigid that we sort of close out any other perspectives, or, our way, it's our way or the highway type of thing, because that will have a strong effect on relationships, on collaborations, on our overall level of success, whatever success means to you. Fours also need to recognize where we have control and where we need to release control. And this is a big one. Fours are very, very, very solution focused. And with that comes the belief that since we can see the solution, we must control how, when, why, and with whom we get to that solution. And again, this can trip us up because it leaves us feeling incredibly frustrated when we figure out that we don't have the control we thought we had, and when we don't see the results that we thought we should see. So again, this becomes a journey of recognizing where we do have control, recognizing where we are meant to put in effort, and recognizing where we are meant to release control and to surrender and to sort of let God or let the universe or let someone else take over, right? This is really challenging for a lot of fours, and this is part of that journey, right? Because again, the 22 is all about relationships and collaboration and working together and building something together. And so we have to move through these sort of lower challenging vibrations of the 4 in order to be able to step into the 22 and be able to have those collaborations and work with others in a way that actually serves everyone involved. So that again can be very frustrating, that whole process. And it's interesting because truly, and this is why I say that frustration, this is probably the most frustrating life path to step into, is the 22. And I would even say the 4 as well, right? But the 22. But frustration is truly, truly, truly the Achilles heel to the 4 and the 22. Nothing stops us in our tracks and keeps us stuck like feeling frustrated because we can't control something, or because we didn't get the results that we wanted. Or that we didn't get that instant gratification, or whatever the case may be, or things didn't happen fast enough. We can get really, really frustrated by that. And when frustration comes in, it can be so detrimental that that's where we start to feel really overwhelmed, and we just feel like, what's the point? And we give up, right? Like we give up the project, we give up the collaboration, we give up whatever, the relationship, because we don't have the ability to, again, either see that instant gratification or have control of the situation, et cetera, et cetera. And so that frustration, when frustration sets in for you as a 22-4, you have got to find a way to get yourself out of it. The quicker that you can get yourself out of that frustration, the quicker you will feel like you're back on track again, and you'll see that sort of frustration cease. But when that frustration comes in, a lot of times it's going to be around things we don't have control over, not seeing that instant gratification, whatever the case may be. But the key is to, however it works for you, whether it's journaling, whether it's contemplation, whether it's going for a walk in nature, you name it, but to get to the core of what is causing that frustration, to really truly get to the core of it. Because if it's like, well, there's just too many challenges and I'm frustrated, then the question becomes, okay, but what are those challenges trying to show you? Are they asking you to check in with yourself to see, is my heart still in it? Am I still meant to keep, persevering and keep going in this direction? Or am I meant to shift gears? Like, are the challenges trying to help me to shift gears? Am I frustrated because I'm not getting the instant gratification? And, why am I not getting the instant gratification? What am I trying to build? Is it something that would require a lot of time and effort? So does it make sense that I would get instant gratification? So why am I getting frustrated by the not getting the instant gratification? Do you see what I'm saying? Deconstruct the frustration, because the frustration is the number one thing that is going to keep you 22-4 stuck. It's the one thing that is going to overwhelm you and keep you spinning your wheels and feeling like the universe and the world is out to get you, or that you are not meant to do, great things in this world. That frustration is an absolute killjoy. Absolute. It will halt every single project, every single step. It is like getting thrown in instant quicksand. So if you take one thing away from this reading, it is when that frustration sinks in, and it will, I promise you, and I'm sure it already has. I sometimes joke that, like, for me personally, it's a weekly thing, right? Like, and I have to really sit with that frustration and deconstruct it and figure out where it's stemming from. And once I can do that, I can see, okay, I'm feeling this frustration because I'm trying to control something. And when I release that control to the best of my ability, that frustration also wanes, right? It ceases to be so strong. And that's usually where it comes down to for me, is not seeing that instant gratification, or not seeing the results I had hoped for, or not seeing them quick enough, or, whatever, you name it. So that frustration can come in, but I guarantee you, when it comes in, everything stops. So for us, it is critical that when the frustration comes in, we immediately work through it. We immediately try to deconstruct it, to see what that frustration is what's at the root of it. What is it trying to show us? Because that's going to show us the solution to getting out of that frustration, so that we can get back on track and start moving forward again. 4s and 22-4s are not meant to move at a quick pace. It's gonna take time. And the sooner that we can realize that and not get frustrated by that process, then, when we are moving, when we're getting some momentum, that will feel wonderful, right? It doesn't have to be a fast pace. We are definitely the turtle in the equation, right? We are not meant to be the hare. We are the turtle. But when we are stuck and we're stuck in our shell, we're not getting any momentum. And usually at the core of that is frustration. So get a method for, 4s love their methods and their systems. Get a system or a method to deconstruct that frustration, because it is the number one thing that will trip us up and keep us tripped up and keep us stuck. So, the other thing I would say is 4 is a wise teacher. It's a very teacher type of energy. There's a lot of wisdom here. There's a lot of wisdom from past lives coming in. And again, because of that 22 vibration, most 22s are sort of old souls, right? This is not the first trip around, this lifetime around the sun type of thing. And so there's a tremendous amount of wisdom that the 4 is bringing forth in this lifetime, but there's also a tremendous amount of wisdom that we are meant to sort of uncover and discover in this lifetime. And the only way we can truly do that is through accumulating that wisdom through overcoming challenges, right? And that's why this is such a testing, sort of challenge-ridden lifetime. There's a tremendous amount of wisdom that's just waiting to be scooped up by us, so that we can then take that wisdom and build what we're meant to build, while also sharing that wisdom in some way that can help not only us, but others as well. Because at the core of it, we're meant to accumulate that wisdom and then find unique ways that sort of, that touch that wisdom, that can share it in a way that is building something resourceful, solution-focused, and sustainable. And again, nothing sustainable is built quickly. The other thing I will say is the 4 is also very emotive. We are deeply sensitive beings and incredibly intuitive, but it can kind of be difficult to tap into that intuitive, well, and that deep sensitive side of ourselves if we're too sort of caught up in our head, if we're too practical, if we're too grounded. And so a lot of the journey of the 4 is also about finding ways to work with our emotions, to manage those emotions, to truly find positive and constructive outlets for our emotions, and to honor those emotions, but also to honor and trust our own intuition. Because again, that intuition is going to be the guiding force that helps us to know whether we keep going or we shift gears. And it's the only force that's going to be able to tell us that. We cannot get that information from the external. So we are absolutely meant to tap into it. And so much of the journey is helping us to tap into those deeper emotions and our deeper feelings and our intuition. And it's interesting too, because from the outside, it can be hard to see that deep sensitive side to the 4 because of sort of that tough exterior. But there is a profound depthness and spirituality and spiritual connectedness to this vibration. And there's also usually a deep connection with the earth and nature and wildlife as well with the 4, because ultimately the 4 is the vibration of the planet. So it only makes sense that those with this life path feel that deeper connection to our current home. So if you're sitting out there and you feel that, right, like you feel like you've got a deep connection to the earth, or when you're out in nature, you feel that healing source, it's, put that to use. Use that, use nature, use, wildlife and viewing wildlife or whatever to connect you to your, again, intuition, your deeper sensitive side, and allow those healing energies to sort of penetrate and come in and touch your soul, so to speak. Because a lot of what the 22-4 is meant to build is meant to, again, serve not only self, but others as well, including the planet that we live on, including nature and, wildlife or the climate or whatever. But you could potentially be at the forefront of some kind of movement that has to do with that, right? As well as, with your human counterparts, which we're all, as humans, part of nature. So there's a deep connection there. Now, some of the shadow sides of the 4 that I think are important to mention, because remember, as a 22, you are 100% a 4. 4s can be overly traditional, meaning they can be sometimes overly rigid in their views and their belief systems, and it can sometimes be really hard to shift a 4's perspective. And though that can seem like, a good thing for the 4, like, there can be some stoicism there, it's not necessarily a good thing because it keeps the 4 from seeing other perspectives. And again, it keeps us working harder, not smarter. And again, as a 22, you absolutely have to be flexible in your beliefs and your views and how you sort of move through the world, because there's such a big emphasis on collaboration and working with others. And we'll talk about that in just a second. 4s can also be quick to form a grudge. And I'll tell you, no one can hold a grudge like a 4. It's like with some 4s, you would have to pry that grudge out of their cold, dead hands after they've crossed over. It's like if you cross a 4, again, nobody can hold a grudge like a 4. So there's work to be done there. There's a lot there with, like, again, being vulnerable, being open-hearted, being forgiving, and all of those things. And that becomes part of the journey as well. So it's not unlikely that the 4 will move through things in life where it's easier to hold a grudge, right, than to work it out, to have those conversations, to get to the core of whatever is causing the grudge. But again, it comes back to that sort of very sort of rigid belief systems and values that can lead to holding that grudge. But that can actually be incredibly detrimental, of course. And remember, we're talking about sort of the shadow sides. It can be difficult for the 4 to, again, see other perspectives or to entertain that someone might have a better way of doing things that can actually help us, again, work smarter, not harder. Which again can make it very difficult for people to want to work with us at times. Now, I will say, usually 4s are very good at working in teams and collaborating and that sort of thing. But there's always that sort of element of my way is better type of thing, or let's do it my way to do it right type of thing. And so it becomes, again, this journey of overcoming that and realizing that everybody's way is great, and how can we combine it and find something that works for everybody. The other thing I would say is 4s can be sort of very hyper independent, sort of always feeling like they need to do everything themselves, and rarely will they ask for help. And when help is offered, often they have a hard time receiving it. And so it can, again, kind of lead to this sort of stoicism where, and a little bit of martyrdom as well, where it's like, I do look at everything I do by myself. Look at everything I'm capable of. Look at everything that I, almost like receiving help is seen as weakness in a sense. And again, that's something that the 4 has to work through. And as a 22-4, you will likely find that you are put in a position in this lifetime where you have to receive help. And again, because we don't do anything quickly in this vibration, it will likely be for several years, right? Like you have to truly get comfortable with the uncomfortableness of receiving. And I can almost guarantee that as a 22, especially if you step into this 22 vibration, you will be likely, very likely, thrown into receiving mode. And that can be one of the most frustrating things for a 22-4. One of the most frustrating things. But there's, again, a method to that madness. And a lot of that is to sort of find balance with that hyper independency, right? Like to kind of calm that a little bit, to realize that we have great things to offer. We have great things to contribute, but we don't have to do it all alone. We don't have to do it by ourselves. There's absolutely support out there. There's absolutely options. And like I said, I would not be surprised if as a 22-4 at some area of your life where it's going to feel really, really uncomfortable, you're going to be thrown into receiving. And you're going to have to find a way to be comfortable with it in order to fully step into this 22 vibration. And I will tell you from personal experience, it is not easy. The 4 can also, again, we talked about this, but it can be a very honest energy. And it can also, again, be very honest and direct in its approach. And that's beautiful. That's really, really, truly beautiful. And I have a lot of admiration for people who present that way. But we can sometimes have difficulty receiving that same degree of honesty from another. So we can sometimes be quick to take things personally or critically when there's no need for that, right? And this often stems from that need for that perfection that sort of plagues the 4, right? It's sometimes we can kind of misconstrue or make assumptions about what someone is saying, and they could be being very direct and honest with us, but we could see that as being critical or whatever the case may be. And again, that can just sort of lead to a breakdown in that connection. And the last thing I want to say about the 4 vibration is that we also can struggle with recognizing our own limitations, especially early on. And this will absolutely trip us up. So the sooner that we can recognize and acknowledge our limitations, the quicker that we can find ways to manage those limitations or to even overcome them, depending on what they are. And though the 4 doesn't sort of like to admit it, we all have limitations and weaknesses. That's just part of being human. And the more that we can honor those limitations and weaknesses, the more we can find ways to work with them. And sometimes that means, calling in others who have strengths where we have weaknesses. And there's going to be a big part of that when it comes to stepping into the 22. And I'm going to talk about that very, very quickly here in a moment. But the more that we can recognize and honor and acknowledge those limitations and those weaknesses, and to not see them as failures, right? Because sometimes the 4 can sort of see those weaknesses as failures, and we can sort of feel bad about ourselves because of them, which ultimately serves no one. But the more that we can acknowledge those limitations, see them as what they are, and then call in people who have strengths where we have those weaknesses, the more that we will work smarter, not harder. So, which is ultimately the goal. Okay, now then, the reason you're really here to hear about the higher and the lower octave of the 22. So remember, we're taking everything we talked about with the 4 and we're expanding upon it. Double dose of the 4. Also, the vibration of the 22, we're incorporating the vibration of those double twos. And remember, the 22-4 is the master builder, but it's meant to work with and build with others in order to get the job done. So right out of the gate, the 22 is absolutely meant to be collaborative, to work well with others, to unite, to bring harmony, to bring balance to everything that it touches. It's also about being unbiased and being the observer and finding common ground in its approach. When we look at the 2 vibration, the 2 is relational. It's all about the full spectrum of relating, whether it's in actual romantic partners or friends, family, colleagues, the acquaintances, the people we meet on the street, you name it. It's about how we relate to another person or another being. So we must work with others in order to be successful. And so anything that presents to you that is of the 22 vibration is not going to be something that you are meant to do solo, that you are meant to do alone. You might have the vision for it. You might have sort of the grounding point of whatever this is, but it will not be something you're meant to do alone. You're absolutely meant to collaborate and to, again, release control in certain areas and, again, acknowledge your weaknesses and call in people with strengths to accomplish whatever this is. Because, again, the 22 does not play small. It's very big energy. So it's not going to be something where we are meant to have martyrdom about and can boast, look at what I did by myself. Look what I've created as a 22. Because if that's the case, then it's not 22 vibration. Because again, you've got double 2s there. It's all about relationships and collaboration and finding that common ground and sort of being the mediator of bringing people together and bringing harmony and balance to a situation. And you absolutely are not meant to do it alone. There's no 1s in this equation. It's all 2s and 4s. So again, the 2 is relational. So we must work with others in order to be successful, in order to truly be successful by 22-4 standards. And, our solutions, though we will likely be the one who sees the solution as the 22-4, because again, 22-4s are very solution focused, we have to be collaborative and interdependent in order to achieve that solution. Interdependency is much more helpful and the focal point over independence here. And sometimes, again, that can be really hard for the 4 because, and again, we are 4s, because of that sort of hyper independence. We want to do it all by ourselves. We want to make it happen. It's just that sort of workhorse type of energy and that strong sense of self and independence. But that's just not going to cut it with a 22 vibration. There must be that collaboration. And there must be diplomacy and building something together with this energy. Because the 4 can be very strong leadership energy, but those double 2s of the 22 require leading alongside of others and having patience and tolerating other people's, sort of how they show up, right? Meeting people where they're at and finding ways to work together, especially when it goes against our sort of the way that we work, even perhaps our belief systems, our values, etc. And that can be one of the hardest things of stepping into the 22 is having to work with other people's schedules, timelines, their pace, how they work, etc. And so again, the true sort of meaning of collaboration. And as the 22, we, instead of getting frustrated and giving up on the project or whatever it may be, the relationship, whatever, we're meant to find ways over those obstacles, right? To tap into our patience, to tap into our ability to listen to what other people have to offer and finding ways to incorporate those offerings into whatever it is that we're building. Because again, I reiterate this and I try to emphasize this. If it's something we're doing alone, it is not of the 22 vibration. If it's something that we're doing with others and collaborating with others in a way, then it's of that 22 vibration. And when I say collaborating, I don't mean that, again, we're at the head of the classroom and we're teaching others, or we're doing for others, or we're providing a service for others. There's got to be that collaboration in the entire process, right? So yeah, it's one of those things that can be incredibly challenging for the 4 to step into that 22 vibration. So some of the higher and lower octaves of the 22, let's kind of break those down a little bit. First and foremost, I want to mention, so if you look at the master energies, 11, 22, 33, 44, like 11 is the inspirational leader, right? So there's a lot of inspiration. It's a feeling. It's something that, the 11 would inspire others through being inspired themselves. It's interesting because the 22, being that sort of master builder type of energy, is meant to bring inspired ideas, whether they're our own ideas or building from someone else's inspiration. We're meant to bring those inspired ideas to life in a solid, sustainable, tangible way. And that's ultimately the goal of the 22, that brings those resources or those solutions in a very tangible way to others through some kind of greater inspiration. Now, some things that can kind of trip the 22 up would be those very self-limiting and self-sabotaging beliefs, right? Again, I can guarantee to you, well, I can pretty much guarantee to you that when the 22 vibration comes knocking on your door, there's going to be a lot of sort of self-doubt. There's going to be those self-limiting thoughts like, why me? Why is this coming to me? Why is this something like I can't do this? Why is this on my plate to do? Or, it feels larger than life. And, it can be very humbling. And we have to find a way to work through those self-sabotaging beliefs, that imposter syndrome, or whatever we tell ourselves about ourselves when that 22 vibration comes in. Because it's never, the 22 vibration, again, it doesn't play small. It's meant to be larger than life. And we are fully capable of stepping into it and achieving whatever our soul is asking us to achieve. But we absolutely have to find ways to keep showing up and to not give up and to keep, pushing forward and showing up and saying yes to whatever this is. And to first and foremost, overcome those self-limiting and self-sabotaging beliefs. And the easiest way to do that, or the most efficient way of doing that, is to keep showing up, right? To prove to ourselves that we are capable of doing this. Because whatever the 22 presents to you, it is a partnership with you and your soul and you and the universe. You are not doing it alone, no matter if it feels like that at times. You are not doing it alone, and you absolutely are not meant to do it alone. So the people will come, the resources will come, what you need will come to make this happen. But I can almost guarantee that it will take time. It will take probably a lot of time. And it's within that time period that, in the stillness, when those self-defeating thoughts can come in and we can be like, oh, I'm not ready for this. I don't know how to do this. I'm scared, whatever, right? And that can trip us up. And that can cause us to say no to this 22 vibration. And again, that's okay. But, my personal experience, it will keep coming in. Again, we talked about, right, with the same thing with the 4 and the 22, it's just sort of magnified. We have to find ways of working through and around, or managing and working with our limitations. And so much of that is going to be recognizing those limitations and calling someone in who has those strengths. The other thing with the sort of lower octave of the 22 is we can be sometimes bossy and opinionated, right? Like, again, we can see the solution, we can see how to get there. So, we have our opinions about that. And sometimes we just have to be careful about overriding other people's opinions, or assuming that we're the smartest one in the room, or assuming that we have the best idea in the room, right? Because we're not the only one. And so there's a lot with that as well. Also, we have to be careful about, being a martyr about the work that we've done and our responsibility. Like a lot of times, you can hear 22/4s talking about like, oh my gosh, look at what I'm doing. Or, oh gosh, I'm so busy. I've got so much going on. My plate is full. Look at everything look at everything I have created. Look at everything I am doing type of thing. And it sort of takes on this martyrdom type of feel. And it also takes on that hyper independency where it's like, look at everything I am capable of doing type of thing. And a lot of times when we are acting that way, when we have to make it very clear to the other person about what we're capable of and what we're doing and what we're achieving, that's actually stemming from insecurities. And really, we're very insecure about what it is that we're doing and what it is that we're achieving or moving towards. And so there's a call to kind of look inwards and see where is it that I'm overly boastful or stepping into that martyrdom of like, look at me and all that I can take on and still be successful, whatever, right? Because again, I will say, nothing about this 22 vibration is about independence, like solely independence, doing things alone. Again, there's not a single one vibration in the 22/4. So it's very much about collaboration, working together, delegating, right? Like, and allowing others to delegate to you where you have strengths and they have weaknesses type of thing. Sort of knowing your place and what you can bring to the table and contribute, and also recognizing that in others, and then working with others in a way to where you can work together and build something, again, really powerful, really beautiful, and really sustainable that has the potential to help a tremendous amount of people, potentially. The other thing that's interesting with the 22/4 is it can be because you got those double twos, right? So 2 energy brings in sensitivity. It brings in, and again, the 4's already got that depthness, but the 2 can bring in sort of overly sensitive energy where it can almost lead to anxiety, where we're almost hyper vigilant about other people's actions. And it can lead to sort of this reactivity where we're quick to react to other people's actions or, just etc. So we just have to be really mindful that we are continuing to check in with ourselves, that we are managing our emotions, that we are channeling our emotions into something positive and constructive. Does that mean we're not going to be sad or angry or whatever? No, absolutely. We're emotive beings, just like everybody else. We're going to feel all of the emotions. We just have to make sure that we are not becoming reactionary and we're actually channeling those emotions into something useful as opposed to something, destructive. The big keynote, similar to the 4, is that we don't try to do it all ourselves, right? Because that is going to push us so far outside of the 22 vibration. We have to find ways to be patient with ourselves and be patient with others and to collaborate. The beautiful thing and sort of like the higher octave of the 22 is this is a powerhouse energy that can turn wisdom into something tangible. So again, it's taking wisdom, it's taking inspiration, and it's finding a way to create something solid and steady and something that's going to last the test of time and potentially bring a tremendous amount of solutions and resources to the world. The other thing that I would say is with the double twos, we are meant to be diplomatic and relationship oriented. Hands down, nothing else to say. That's such the big goal of the 22 and such a strong keynote because you have this double twos. So, this is going to be a life path where, and that's why it's so hard for the 4 to step into the 22, honestly, is because the 4 is just by default sort of that hyper independent individual who is resourceful and, solution focused and has proved to themselves that they can survive and do what they need to do and be independent. And so the 22, though, there's just nothing about the 22 that says you're meant to do this alone. And it's such a collaborative effort. And so that can be challenging for that 22 to, again, release that control, because ultimately that's what it comes down to. Release that control to, sort of start sitting at the circular table, as opposed to sitting at the table where you're the head of the table. And sometimes that can be hard for 22s or 4s to step into that 22 vibration. But that's another thing that the 4 and the 22 will sort of help us on our journey. And that's what I say when I say this is about preparation. The journey prepares us to be able to step into this 22. So much of what we'll likely face is having to be super independent and then having to be interdependent and kind of move through the uncomfortableness of that and figure that out, right? And find ways to, again, work smarter, not harder. Ultimately, with the 22-4, you have this integration between the 2 and the 4, okay? And so again, working together, the diplomacy, the unbiasedness, the seeing eye to eye, bringing people together. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the 22-4 is meant to build something with others that is meant to bring people together, to bring harmony, balance, etc., to a larger population through those collaborative efforts. So it's incredibly, incredibly beautiful energy, but there's so much that sort of makes it difficult to step into. And absolutely, the 22-4 is a slow moving energy. Just because you step into the 22 does not mean that anything starts happening quickly. It absolutely usually does not. Everything still happens with the need for just as much effort and at that slower pace as it did with the 4 energy. But now it's just of a larger scale. There just feels like there's a little bit more pressure there. And that can make it even more difficult to pace yourself. And again, the reason why I said I feel this life path is the most frustrating is because of the tremendous amount of effort, patience, and persistence that's required in order to see actual results. This is absolutely a testing life path with challenges and speed bumps and roadblocks around just about every single corner. Testing our resolve and our dedication, but also helping us to determine, again, when to say yes and when to say no. No other life path has as many red lights and construction zones as the 22-4, and I would also say as the 13-4 and the 4. Frustration will absolutely be like your shadow, and you're gonna have to find ways to work with it because we certainly can't control whatever it is that's generating that frustration. We can only sort of control how we find ways to release that frustration. This is going to be a lifetime of building something from inspiration, turning the unseen into the seen, turning the imagination into something very practical and tangible that, again, has the potential to touch many, many lives. And we will likely want that to be quick and effortless, but there's nothing quick or effortless about building something from nothing and ensuring that it's sustainable. So when we feel frustrated, it's because we either want to control the environment and the outcome too much, or because we're trying to rush a process that the universe absolutely will not let us force. When the red lights come on, instead of getting frustrated, pause and try to find where that frustration stems from and modify that, and you'll find your momentum again. The frustration rarely means that we're meant to give up on something. The 22-4 and the 4 is the most persistent vibration in numerology because, again, there will always be rewards here, but they will absolutely take time and they will absolutely be in direct proportion to the effort put forth. Giving up too soon will yield proportionate results, meaning if you give up too soon and you just put in a little bit of effort, you're just going to see a little bit of reward. So again, come back to yourself, come back to your heart center and figure out, do I want this or do I not want this? And if you do, keep going and the rewards will be worth it. It'll be worth it. So you're meant to build what your soul came here to build, and that will not happen quickly or easily, but no one is here more equipped to make it happen than you are. And seeing it through to completion is literally the only way that's going to happen, no matter how difficult, no matter how long the road is to get there. So as long as your heart's in it, and you must continuously check in with yourself along the way to make sure that your heart is in it, keep going, and you will amaze yourself at what you're capable of building in this lifetime in collaboration with others. So I promised a personal example of this, stepping into this 22 vibration, and I just want to share it in case it helps anybody out there kind of illustrate, sort of what this vibration holds. And it is interesting as a numerologist to be a 22-4 and to also be living this, to live it and to be able to see it play out. So I want to share it. So in 2021, I had a massive download, a massive inspiration come in. And I can't talk about what that is, but I will give you sort of the high level details of it because it all plays into this 22 vibration. Anyway, came in and was very clear about the steps I needed to take moving forward. So I started out on that journey, taking that inspiration to build this thing. But I kept hitting roadblocks. I kept, it was very difficult to kind of get off the ground. And it became very, very frustrating. Surprise, surprise. And so at the end of 2020 or middle of 2022, I ended up setting it down, kind of giving up on it, being like, this is not for me. I can't make this happen. It's too big. And I will say it is a global project. It is massive. It is way outside of my wheelhouse. I have no experience in this area. So again, I say when the 22 comes in, it's really going to sort of rock your world. And you are not going to feel prepared for what it's asking you to do, but you are prepared. You just don't know it yet. So looking back over that period from 21 to mid, say 22, I can see now that some of the reasons why that wasn't working is because I was doing it alone. I was trying to go out on this venture, make this happen alone. And so obviously that blew up in my face. Now, fast forward to, let's say 2023, it came in again. I had put it down. I had said, this is not happening. I'm not doing this. 2023, it came up very strongly again. Again, and I met some people who were potentially going to collaborate on this project with me. And I started to feel reinvigorated, like, okay, I can do this type of thing. But again, I would say that lasted for about 6 months and never really found its footing. And again, I had to set it down. Fast forward to 2024. In June, it resurfaced once again and in a big way. And now in 2024, middle of 2024, the people started coming in that I meant to collaborate with on this, right? I'm not meant to do it alone. I'm absolutely meant to collaborate on this. And I am going to have to give up control in certain areas. And I am meant to, sort of be able to sort of receive and recognize my limitations and all of the things, right? So now we're almost moving towards 2025. And it's just starting to get legs. I'm just starting to see how this is actually going to happen. And I will tell you, and this has been almost 4 years of this, right? Of it just coming in and like really kind of getting little bits and pieces of like how I'm going to make this happen, et cetera, or how we, I should say, are going to make this happen, et cetera. And by we, I mean those involved. And I can now finally, almost 4 years later, see how this is going to play out, likely. And it's going to require a team, and it's going to require, again, persistence and all of those things. And the kicker is it likely will not be completed for at least another 2 years, maybe 3, depending. It's a massive project. And so we're looking at a span of 4 to 7 years for this project that came in as an inspiration, as a vision, as a download. nearly 4 years ago. And the journey has been tumultuous. And really, it's the internal tumultuousness, right? It's like me thinking I can't do this. I don't have what I need. I'm not equipped. I'm not all the things. You name it, I thought it. And that picking up and putting down and picking up and putting down. And I'll tell you, every time that I tried to really, truly put this down, it came back up and it came back in my face. And again, that's what I mean when I say, yes, we can choose to stay in the 4 vibration, but I'm pretty sure that, the soul is really destined or really wants to do whatever this is for each of us, so that however it comes in for you, to where it's going to be way more difficult to give up this 22 vibration than it is to, say yes to it and see it through to completion and make it happen. But I just wanted to share that example. And again, I don't know for sure that this project is going to happen. I mean, I feel it and I can see it, but who knows, right? Because I'm sure that there's going to be plenty more roadblocks and challenges along the way. But I have a feeling it is going to happen. And I'll certainly let you know once it does, because I can't talk about it now more than what I'm giving you. But I say all of this and I share this because I can tell you from experience that when that 22 vibration comes in for you, you are not going to feel ready. Like the preparation I've had up to this point is important and I see the value of it, but it has not emotionally or mentally prepared me for what I would feel when it did show up. Does that make sense? So I guess my point of saying that too is there's a tremendous amount of effort in it as well, right? There's no rushing this process. Again, it's been 4 years and I'm still trying to get it to come together to actually not only give it legs, but to have it take off. And I'm finally kind of at that stage. But I know I've got another couple years ahead of me with it. So there's no instant gratification here. There's no results here, but it's absolutely building something sustainable potentially. So you just have to have that patience. And I will say though, that the journey thus far has prepared me with the patience, with basically everything that I need to be able to make this happen, and to collaborate with others in this way. But it still doesn't prepare you for the imposter syndrome, the feeling of the inability to make it happen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that will definitely come in, and you've just got to find a way to keep moving through it every time it presents. And you'll do it. You will do it. You literally came here as a 22-4 for a reason. Your soul knows what it's doing. So let your soul be in the driver's seat, even when it's the most uncomfortable ride of your life. And it will all pay off. It will all pay off. And the rewards will be worth it. And I'll let you know, when I get to that point with this project. And we'll see how it goes. So just remember, I'm right there with you, 22s. All right. I'm in this journey with you. And, I'm not sure what my soul was partaking in when it decided to come down here as a 22-4, 13-4, but here we are. And boy, has it been a ride. So keep chugging along. We're in this together. And I can't wait to see what you create. Take care. Bye for now.